What's up YouTube, Dell here from Zephyr, and today I'm bringing you arguably what is probably one of the strongest versions of Dracotails, and that is Dracotail Shaddoll. That's right, this deck has actually been picking up a lot of traction lately, and for the pure fact of the matter is there's loads of different synergistical pieces between the two. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take you through the profile, show you what we've got, I'll explain the additional synergies, and talk about the updated changes from the previous Shaddoll version that I did. Keep in mind that the previous Shaddoll version that I did with the Dracotails was more Shaddoll themed. We're now using Shaddolls as a very minimal engine within inside the deck to increase the power and the ceiling of the Dracotail strategy and how you can interact with your opponent, that you might be seeing this strategy coming for you sooner than you know. So with all of that out of the way, please smash that like button, hit that notification bell and subscribe so you miss out on any more upcoming content. Diving headfirst into the profile, we're going to start off with the Dracotail monsters, starting off with 3 of the Fey Mana. Now this is one of the core components, so this and the Yugioh are both cards that are starting to pick up a bit of financial traction and just generally seeing a bit more people asking for these particular cards. Yugioh is your ideal starter for the entire strategy because on normal or special you get to search yourself out a Dracotail monster, working yourself into the Fey Mana, and the Fey Mana is your quick event during the main phase to fusion summon into a spellcaster or specifically into a dragon. So keep that in mind because there will be some Shaddoll monsters you can't gain access to, but one of the most important ones that you can gain access to is going to be El Shaddoll Winder. Now this would require you to have at least a Shaddoll monster and a Dark monster in the hand. The only Dark monster of your main strategy is going to be the Mululu, but you do also have that option of opening up 2 Shaddoll monsters. Whether that happens or not, you know, that's the luck of the draw, but being able to go, cool, main phase, drop this Fey Mana, send someone out a window, and then they're like, now what am I supposed to do? Like during their first turn, like how crazy is that? Then for the Mululu, I'm currently still only on 2. I'm still highly tempted to bump this up. I have kind of contemplated, do I want Cartesia into the deck as well? And the reason that Cartesia is so good is it's kind of like a Mululu, but it doesn't need you to specifically go into Dracotail monsters. It then also gives you the ability to recycle it from the graveyard if a fusion monster is sent to the graveyard. And on top of that as well, it can also be summoned out of the deck through fusion duplication. So if you're happy locking yourself into fusions, which you will do with Rahu Dragontail and the Dracotail Mululu, you don't really mind utilizing it. And for the final Dracotail monsters, we've got the 1 Urgler and the 1 Dracotail Pan. So pretty simple on these ones. Less so the Pan, but the Urgler is actually going to be more effective for you as it is that fire attribute that you'll need to make the Grista from the main deck. Another thing that I should really point out is Mululu is your dark attribute, Yugioh is your earth attribute to get you into a Shekanaga, and then the water attribute is going to be your Fey Mana that can get you into an Ananteles if you want to go down that route as well, which is why we're going to be playing those in the extra deck, so you can kind of see how utilized they can be and how effective they can all be, as you might want to be dusting off your old Shaddoll cards. Carrying on to the Dracotail spells, now we're going to be maxing it out on the Rahu Dragontail and the Ketu Dragontail. You could, in theory, make this deck go as an aggressive, like, field breaker version, and I'll talk you through the cards you can take out, because when I actually look at it, we play 3, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15 hand traps, and the reason you play the hand traps rather than the breakers, because if you don't get to go first, the hand traps are being monsters, so you're actually able to use them as fusion material, and with all of those monsters being different attributes, again, that can help get you to some of your Shaddoll monsters depending on what you're going to be opening up with. But it is one of the ones that you might want to consider playing more monsters and less spells and traps just for that pure kind of synergistic factor. That being said, if you wanted to play more breaker cards, you could do very easily. Then finally, the 1 Flame and the 1 Horn. I'm still never going to get over like how many times these cards will clog you, but they are just so good and very easily accessible that you still need to play them. I do find myself sometimes in the particular matchup, I might side out Flame in, for example, a Manish matchup, but I'll keep Horn in, and in a different matchup, which is more heavily for spells, I would get rid of the Horn and go for the Flame instead. Then for the Shaddoll package, very tiny on the Shaddoll package. You don't really need to go too crazy with this one. So we've got 3 Shaddoll Beasts. The only real reason that you're playing this card is that you send it from either the deck to the grave through Shaddoll Fusion, the hand to the grave, or any way whatsoever, and get a draw off it. That's pretty much what you're looking to do. That if you hard open up a Shaddoll Beast plus any Dracotail monster and the Fey Mana, you use the Fey Mana, you'll fuse, use the Beast, that will then get you a draw to recur some of your resource, and then because you've used 2 monsters in the hand, if you do go into the Arthleon will then add back the Fey Mana and then one other monster, not the Shaddoll, back to your hand. So you're recurring all that resource, and throughout that particular play, you would have used a Dracotail monster, and that Dracotail monster would set you a Ketu, a Flame, a Horn, or even a Rahu for your follow-up at the next turn. I like playing the one Hedgehog. Now, the reason I like to play the one Hedgehog is because if I use this as fusion material, more times I'm going to be using it from the deck to the grave with Shaddoll Fusion. It can then help me search out the beast. So when you're activating Shaddoll Fusion, in an idle scenario, what you'll do is you'll go beast plus a fire for Gristar or plus a earth for Shekanaga. But what you can do is you can send the Hedgehog plus, you still use the Urgler for the Gristar, or you can use the Lucias for the Shekanaga. In doing so, what that's going to give you the ability for is trigger Hedgehog's effect to search you out the beast. That will then guarantee to have that discard in the hand for your Grista negation or your Shekanaga negation. And on top of that, you'll be utilizing the Lucias or the Urgler ability to set and play on from there. So really kind of cool bridge card, and I like that. Rather than going for the unknown draw, I'd like to make sure that when I'm making a Shekanaga or a Gristar, which is going to be very, very important, more so for the Shekanaga to play around Nibiru than anything else, it can put in a lot of work for you. Speaking of which, free Shaddoll Fusion, so not much more really needs to be said about this. This is one of your power play spells. This is why the deck can very easily function going second, and what I mean by that is, you go second, you activate Shaddoll Fusion, you're good to rock and roll, because then that will send you a Dracotail from the deck to the grave, it will send you a Shaddoll from the deck to the grave. If you want to get a Shaddoll monster to the hand, because you're going to go into Shekanaga to protect your plays, you can do. If not, you send Beast, you get that unknown draw, you also get the set off the back of the Dracotail, that will then allow you to push your plays even further forward. Another additional benefit of a card like this as well is that this will be Ash bait, but then you also need to keep in mind that your Rahu Dragontail does pretty much the exact same thing, but for Dracotail monsters, so that will also be Ash bait as well. And what you're doing is you're playing these one-off power play spell cards that, apart from the Rahu Dragontail, is not going to lock you into anything specific. A massive shout out to Carl. Unfortunately, he doesn't play the game anymore, but I remember back in the day, he used to play what I would consider as a power spell play deck, or probably like a power spell play deck. And what it was is you would play the Invoked Engine, you would play the Dear Servant, you'd play Shaddoll Fusion, you'd play these all one card, incredibly powerful combo pieces that basically just allowed you to keep trading interactions with your opponent, and every last card you play, whether it ended up being Fusion Destiny to get you into Destroy Phoenix Enforcer, whether it be Shaddoll Fusion to get you into another Shaddoll monster, it would always cause your opponent these hard kind of abilities to trade back and forth. Then onto the hand traps that, like I've said, can be breakers, but I feel being hand traps, they're still going to give you a bit more utility than anything else. Free Ash Blossom and Joyous Spring. I decided to take the gamble and I'm main decking free Draw and Lockbird. You don't have to main deck the Draw and Lockbird. I just feel it's one of these ones where a lot more people are getting a bit more confident, feeling that Draw and Lockbird is going to the side deck. So then they're starting to bring out these decks and not really respect it as much as they probably should do, so that when you're that one person that goes draw and they're like, oh, people are still playing this in the main, you're going to cause them a couple of issues. Now, you don't have to play this, but again, what I would suggest you to swap this out for is that would then be 2 Ghost Ogre and 1 Ghost Spell, because I'm already playing 2 Ghost Spell as it is. But you can kind of adapt it to your personal preference of what you feel is the hand trap of your choice. That would be the most effective for you. Then we've got 3 Fluilos, followed up by 2 Perulia. Again, you can play Perulia at 3 if you wanted to. I just don't want to clog down the Chummies too much. Yes, the Chummies can still be used as fusion material, mainly the Perulia to get you into the Anonteles, whereas the Fluilos can't really get you into anything that effective outside of the standard play of going into your Dracotails. But it's just one of them cards that you kind of want to be able to go Fluilos into Perulia, draw, and that's even more of a reason why you're going to want monster hand traps, because the monster hand traps then become more effective and more live as you go. Finally, for the hand traps, we've got 2 Nibiru, the Primal Being, and 2 Ghost Spell. I feel that, again, Nibiru is one of them ones that you could afford to put into the side deck, and if you were to, you could probably put some of the monsters that are in the side deck into the main deck. That is entirely up to you and your preference and your playstyle and your environment, but I kind of felt that it's one of these ones that a lot of people, again, quite like Draw and Lockbird, not that they disrespect Nibiru, but they don't tend to expect Nibiru in game 1. So when you're able to go, cool, I actually have Nibiru as an out, you get to drop it on them as well. There are ways where Ghost Spell as well is going to be very, very effective in this current format when you've got to take into account Yummies, you've got K9s, and then you've also got the Dracotails. All of them want to move cards in the graveyard. Yummy wants to use their Synchros or even any of their cards to revive from the graveyard, the Synchro to bounce out and revive and everything else like that. The Dracotails, they want to be utilizing their trap cards that can become a spell negator and obviously a absorption or a return compulsory of the attack monster, and you can Ghost Spell those. And then in the form of the K9s, they want to use Lupas to come back from the graveyard, and you can Ghost Spell that. So that can cause them a couple of issues, because then all they'll be done is start with an Azuna on the field, and then you're like, okay, cool, now I don't need to worry about you quick XEing during my turn, and then I can build on from there. So that's it for the entire main deck. Now to go off the extra deck. I'll also show you a demo side deck as well for cards that I think are going to be very useful for you this format. I am also going to do, as requested, a like hand trap or maybe even a side deck tier list and just kind of take you through the type of cards that some people might consider, some people that won't consider them, how effective they may be, because there's a couple of cards that I'm currently looking at, like Gravekeeper's Inscription and maybe even Sales Band down the line, that you might want to be considering picking up to give you another advantage. So moving into the extra deck, so for the extra deck for the Shaddoll monsters, we're going to be playing 4 Shaddoll monsters. So you've got the 1 Winder, Grista, and Anontelis, and then we do also play the 1 Shekanaga. Now, Winder is pretty straightforward. It requires a Shaddoll monster and a Dark monster, and each player can only special summon 1 monster per turn. Now, obviously, in the ways that this works in the current meta, you do need to be a little bit careful. What I mean by that is if your opponent activates Azuna in their hand and you were to chain a quick play way to fuse into Winder, happy days, because then the Azuna will have to send a monster from the deck to the grave and then they couldn't bring back the Lupus. All we need to worry about is the Azuna then crashing over the Winder and then trying to make plays from that point on. It's also quite important that if you are able to activate a fusion spell, for example, to try and work yourself into a Winder and then they chain Azuna, they're not going to know you're going into Winder, and then that could really cause them an issue as well. The one flip side of that you do need to be quite careful of is that when you're trying to work your way into a Winder, if you actually let your opponent get a monster onto the field, your Shaddoll fusion during your first turn is going to be completely live to use your deck as material. Now, more times than not, the monster that your opponent's going to be going for through the extra deck will be something like a Ripper, but it can also be something along the lines of a Nashornite. That will still then allow you to dictate what you want to go for. And what I mean by that is Ripper can't really stop a Shaddoll fusion. So if you activate Shaddoll fusion and you go for a Grista or you go for a Shekanaga, or if you want to go for a Winder, you can do it, and you just need to protect it from being destroyed by battle. And that's when you're going to need to try and utilize stuff like your Arthleon to return at that opponent's Ripper back to the hand, or even a Dracotail Moolulu to then negate the Ripper and then return it. The Shekanaga gives you the ability to then negate a monster's effect that is activated on the field, a special monster specifically, and then you get to negate the activation, destroy that monster, and then if you do, you have to discard a Shaddoll card, which is why when you're using Hedgehog, that's giving you the ability to guarantee to have that Shaddoll monster, and then because you're sending as effect, not as cost, you'll get the draw for that beast as well. So you're getting the best of both. Grista is basically a negation for inherent summon. So while you have a Shaddoll card in your hand, you get to negate the summon, and if you do, destroy that monster, and then you send a Shaddoll card from the hand to the grave. All of the Shaddoll monsters have the same effect that if they're sent from the field to the grave, they get to add a Shaddoll card back from the grave to the hand, or specifically a Shaddoll spell or trap. So you're going to be able to add back your Shaddoll fusion, which is great, because then what you'll do is once you've used what you want to do, during your turn, as long as you are not locked under Rahu, Dragontail, or Moolulu, is you can link them off into a card like SP Little Knight, which I am playing for that particular reason, add back Shaddoll fusion, and then go again. The Anontelis is one that you might be a little bit unfamiliar with, so neither player can special summon monsters from the hand or graveyard using spell or trap effects, which is absolutely fine because you're not going to be using any spells or traps to summon cards from your own graveyard or from your own hand. So that's when you can really start to stump your opponent's monsters, and that's why stuff like Yummy Surprise will also be shut off, which can be quite useful. And then in certain matchups, it can be even more effective for you depending on what you're going for. So this is a card you could cut out. One of the cards that I have had to try and sacrifice is a third copy of the Arthleon. But if you really want to play a third Arthleon, you could sacrifice the Anontelis, as it's one of the ones you'll probably be making the least. But it's in those particular scenarios where a spell would then do the exact same thing it wants to do, you can negate it and deal with it. For the Dracotail fusion monsters, we've got the 2 Arthleon, the 2 Glomels, and then we do still play the 1 Mysterion, the Dragon Crown, and the 1 Secturion Dragon. Secturion Dragon is the absolute out floodgate for the entire mirror match. If you summon out your Secturion Dragon, your opponent cannot activate the monsters of spellcasters or dragons special to their field, so straight away the Arthleon, the Glomel, all completely shut off, and it really does cause them a lot of issue. Then we've got the generic SP Little Knight, and then for the final the final 4 slots is entirely up to you. I've decided that for my side deck, I want to try out Ultimate Slayer for this particular format. Now, I say particular format, I mean like for the current next event that I'm going to go to with a deck like this. The reason that I want to try that out is because the more and more I thought about it, I was like, okay, cool, well, I can Ultimate Slayer, I can send a Garura to give me a draw to then out my opponent's fusion monster on the field. So that's how I can out my own opponent's Secturion Dragon. So that could be something quite useful for me. Then in the Yummy matchup, you've also got that option. Do you send, like your opponent cannot respond with monster effects. So I'm like, okay, cool, well, do I send a Link monster to negate the Link 1 Snatchy, and then I've sent a Tri-Brigade Link 5, which in turn will try to trigger its effect. At that point, my opponent then has the option of a Herald to deal with it, or not. And if they don't deal with it, I send the Garura. The Garura then tries to trigger the effect to give me a draw. And what I'm doing in that particular scenario is I'm trying to bait out the Herald. They're probably not going to take that bait, but I'm also then able to replace the Ultimate Slayer with a draw. Then all I need to do is either bait out the Herald or just normal summon down a monster that's strong enough to deal with the Herald, and I don't need to worry about the Link 1 trying to quick synchro during my turn. Then, of course, we do have the Malong specifically for the Herald. So if you do decide, you know what, I don't actually care about the Yummy, you probably will do more times than not, but I want to deal with the Herald because I want to start activating cards that are going to send from the deck to the deck and hand to the grave, and I need to make sure they don't get banished. That's when you're then going to go, okay, cool, we'll use the Malong. Malong will then be able to negate the Herald, and then, the Ultimate Slayer will send the Malong to send the Herald, and then you'll be able to utilize the Malong, and the Malong will then be able to go, okay, cool, attempt to negate the Link 1. The Link 1 will then use its effect to then quick synchro if there is a monster face up on the field to do so. And then the final one is the Agitator. Again, this is the flex spot, is on the environment whether there is an Xyz that you need to worry about. But again, with the K9 strategy, you've got Ripper. You've also got to keep in mind that they might go down the C104 route. They've got the C101 route as well. So there's a couple of different options that might try and interact with you, and being able to use Ultimate Slayer to deal with that can be quite helpful. You do have the flex spot to put Construct in here. Don't worry, it was just as painful for me as it probably is for everyone else watching this to not put Construct in the deck. I just didn't feel it was an absolute necessity. Yes, I could make it, and when I make it, I'm probably going to only be able to utilize it off of the back of Shaddoll Fusion, because remember, you can only make in your Garista and Alantelis and your Shekanaga with Shaddoll Fusion because they're Machine, Fiend, and I think it's Fairy is Garista. I haven't used Garista for a while. Rock. So the only one that you can actually do out of the back of your Shaddolls will be with Ketu, will be the, not with Ketu, with Feymena will be your Winder. Let me just double check Ketu. I believe Ketu lets you fusion summon anything. No, it has to be Dragon or Spellcaster. So again, Ketu can't even make it either. But the idea is that your other Shaddoll monsters can only come off the back of Shaddoll Fusion, which is why you need to be a little bit sparing with it and make sure you're going for the exact one that you want. Moving on to the side deck. So for the side deck at the moment, I want to try out 3 Gravekeeper's Inscription. As I previously mentioned, we're not summoning cards from our graveyard. Neither player can activate card effects in the graveyard. You probably don't want to be doing that one. And neither player can special summon monsters from the graveyard. Now, the only reason you would activate the one that neither player can activate monster effects in the graveyard is it will turn off all of your opponent's Dracotails and their Shaddolls. But it will also turn off yours, so you need to be doing something really insane to be able to put that lock on. This is more so one of them cards that I get to go first, and I go, right, okay, neither player can banish cards from the graveyard, or more times than anything, neither player can special on monsters from the graveyards until the end of your opponent's turn. So that will completely slow down the Yummy's kind of way to spam the field quite quickly. And if between that particular position you're able to also put a Winder on the field, you're basically saying to your opponent, you can't summon back from the graveyard, you can't out my Winder's going to be strong enough during the next turn, and you just put it into a very, very slow grind game. You don't have to play this card, it's just a card that I am considering for this current format. As you'll see, this is a card that I would put in going first. The rest of the cards I'm going to talk you through are cards I'm going to be putting in for first or second, and let you have a bit more information that way as well. So for a card that could be put in for going first or going second can be Book of Eclipse. Now, the reason this could be for going first or going second is if I'm going first, I can set it. Yes, I'll be putting my own monsters face down, but keep in mind, once you've gone through your initial play, and your initial play is usually going to be an Artheon, set the trap card, a Glamel, set the other trap card, and then you've got a Feymena in the hand, you could very easily activate the Book of Eclipse, flip your monsters face down after you've already triggered a Dracotail effect. So in that scenario, probably what you do is you'd activate a trap card first, maybe to negate a spell, then use the Glamel to pop a card, then you'd use the Book of Eclipse to flip everything face down, and then if your opponent's still able to go, you activate the Horn. Keeping in mind, both of those cards will give you draws, and then once you've done all that, you can just go Feymena, fuse with one of your face down monsters, and then straight away get you into a brand new Artheon to return 1, if not 2 cards, depending on how many cards you have used from the hand. If you're going second, again, against Yummy, flip their entire field face down. If you're going up against Vanquisher, again, flip their entire field face down. Now, the one thing that I have kind of changed a little bit with this is that I have changed the fact of relying on Triple Tactics Frost. You don't see there's any Frost in the main deck or the side deck. It's something that you can consider dependent on your preference. Now, what I mean by that is if you don't want to be playing something like your Gravekeeper's Inscription or the next card that I'm going to show you being the Ultimate Slayer, that's when you can play Triple Tactics Frost, you can play Evening Match, you can play Dark Ruler No More, you can play Harpy's Feather Duster, and these are just ways to help you deal with Dust Devil and everything else in between. Entirely up to you on your preference on that one, so go with what works best for you. Ultimate Slayer is only ever going to go in second as well. Dino Wrestler Prankatops, I'm not completely sold on this card, but the idea is that because I'm going to be putting cards on my field during my opponent's turn 0, the Prankatops is usually going to be there because you need to have, as long as your opponent controls more monsters than you do, you can summon it down. Whereas something like Fenrir, you need to control no monsters. So that's why Prankatops is probably a bit better suited for this. But again, 2 Thrusts and a Duster, or 2 Thrusts and a Talent, entirely up to you. And then the final 3 cards I'm playing, I don't know why, I'm just trying to respect towers. Like, you might go to an environment, no one's on Lunalights, no one's on Super Quants, no one's playing towers whatsoever, and you're like, yeah, cool, I don't need to put these 3 cards in. But I'm like, you know what? Towers actually terrify me. Because if my opponent's able to get to a towers, and I'm not saying that they should be getting to them with the amount of hand traps we're playing, and the fact that we're also utilising other cards like Winder to stop them doing that, but if they are to get to a towers, I don't want to have to go, cool, Scoop, let's go to game 2. So that is why I want to be playing 3, well, Scoop and go to game 3. So that's why I want to be playing 3 Kaijus in the side. Now, the Kaiju still serve double purpose for the deck, and the reason they serve double purpose is that the ones that I've chosen, and it probably should be the Dogoran as a fire attribute, just because Grista might be a little bit more consistent than the Anantelis, but you still want the Gameciel being the lowest attack stat one, because as soon as I give my opponent the Comungus, I can deal with that, and I can deal with the Raiden, but as soon as I give my opponent a 3k monster, the only way I can deal with it is by crashing a Arthleon into it or return it to the hand. Returning a Kaiju from the field to the hand is one of the best feelings ever, because you just go, cool, return that Kaiju, and then give it back to you. So I do like that feeling, but if you're doing something like that anyway, the card you're going to Kaiju might not be that big of a threat for you. So I'm going with 3 of these. You've got the Dark for the Winder play, you've got the Earth for the Shekanaga play, you've got the Water for the Anantelis play, but you've also got the 3 lowest attack ones apart from the Mothra one. I can't remember the Mothra's name. Gandala. There you go. Apart from the Gandala, and the reason I didn't put Gandala in here is because it's wind and it doesn't actually serve me for any other additional purposes, or even its level being that useful, to be completely honest. So I quite like playing these. I think they're kind of a cool option to kind of deal with particular towers. But like I said, it's really if you're going to respect the towers that are running around in the current format. If you don't feel you're going to be facing it or even need to worry about it, then you don't worry about towers. You don't need to play these cards. Again, that's entirely up to you and adapt it to your environment. So that's it for the entire profile and the extra deck and the side deck. If you do have any questions at all, by all means, please put in the comments down below. I'm always happy to answer them. I do like how this version runs. Like I said, the first version I did was more tailored towards the Shaddoll cards themselves and trying to make it a bit more of a nostalgic Shaddoll feel, which is why you ended up playing like Wendy and Falco and Dragon and everything else. That being said, Dragon can also be a very, very good card that you can side in, because then that's another way of being able to deal with your opponent's spells and traps. But again, that will kind of come down to preference and kind of what you want to have access to. Anyway, that's it for the entire profile. Any questions, comments below, always happy to answer them. For now, as absolutely always, stay safe, and of course, happy dueling.